The small diner on the outskirts of town was always bustling with activity, but today felt different. It wasn't just the usual chatter of customers or the clinking of plates. There was an unspoken tension in the air. Sarah, a single mother and hardworking waitress, tied her apron around her waist as she glanced at her 6-year-old daughter, Lily. With no babysitter available that day, Sarah had no choice but to bring Lily along for her shift. Sarah sighed softly, brushing a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. She knelt down to Lily's level, placing both hands on her daughter's tiny shoulders. "Listen to me, sweetheart," she said gently, her voice filled with warmth, but also a hint of worry. "You have to stay close to me while we're here. Don't wander off, okay? And don't talk to strangers." Lily nodded eagerly, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny, a faded pink rabbit missing one ear, tightly against her chest. Her big blue eyes sparkled with innocence, and though she didn't fully understand why her mom seemed so serious, she promised to behave. "I won't, Mommy. I promise." Sarah gave her a quick kiss on the forehead before standing up straight, again. The diner wasn't glamorous. It was a modest place with worn-out booths, sticky tabletops, and a faint smell of grease lingering in the air. But it paid the bills. For Sarah, that was all that mattered. She had worked tirelessly since Lily was born, juggling late-night shifts and early mornings just to make ends meet. Life hadn't been easy, but seeing her daughter's smile made every sacrifice worth it. As Sarah got to work, filling coffee mugs and jotting down orders, Lily settled herself onto a stool near the counter. She pulled out a coloring book from her backpack and began scribbling furiously, humming a tune under her breath. The diner buzzed with life. Truck drivers laughed loudly over plates of pancakes, teenagers whispered secrets over milkshakes, and elderly couples shared stories over cups of tea. But amidst all this noise, Lily remained focused on her artwork, occasionally glancing up to watch her mom move gracefully between tables. Unbeknownst to Sarah, one of the patrons sitting by the window was watching them intently. He was a tall man in his late 30s, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy blue suit that stood out sharply against the casual attire of the other diners. His name was Ethan Carter, a self-made billionaire known for revolutionizing the tech industry. Yet here, in this humble diner, he looked like any other customer, except for the way his sharp gaze lingered on Sarah and Lily. Ethan had arrived in town unexpectedly, seeking refuge from the chaos of his high-powered life. He'd heard about the diner from a colleague who claimed it served the best pie in the state. Intrigued, Ethan decided to pay it a visit. What he hadn't anticipated was feeling drawn to the young woman working tirelessly behind the counter, or the little girl, sitting quietly beside her. As he sipped his coffee, Ethan couldn't help but notice how much care Sarah put into her job. She greeted each customer with a genuine smile, even when they were rude or impatient. There was a quiet strength about her, a resilience that intrigued him. And then there was Lily. The child's presence added a layer of warmth to the scene, her laughter light and pure, cutting through the humdrum of everyday life. But what struck Ethan most was how familiar Lily seemed. As he studied her face, he noticed something uncanny. Her dark hair, her piercing blue eyes, and even the shape of her nose reminded him of someone. Himself. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Could it be possible? He shook his head, dismissing the idea almost immediately. It was absurd. He hadn't been in this town in years, not since his early 20s when he was still chasing dreams bigger than himself. Back then, he'd met a girl, a waitress if memory served correctly, and they'd shared a brief romance during those carefree summer days. But their paths had diverged once he left to pursue his ambitions, and he hadn't thought about her since. Still, the resemblance nagged at him. He tried to push it aside, focusing instead on the slice of apple pie in front of him. But his attention kept drifting back to Lily, who had grown restless after finishing her coloring book. She slid off her stool and wandered aimlessly, her curious gaze darting around the room. When her eyes finally landed on Ethan, something inside her lit up. Slowly, tentatively, she took a step toward him. Then another. Sarah called out from across the room, "Lily, stay where you are." But the warning came too late. Before anyone could react, Lily broke into a run, her tiny legs carrying her straight to Ethan. Without hesitation, she threw herself into his arms, shouting, "Dad!" The entire diner froze. Forks paused midair, conversations halted, and every head turned toward the unlikely trio. Ethan sat motionless, stunned by the sudden display of affection. He gently pried the child off him, his expression a mix of shock and confusion. "What did you call me?" he asked softly, his voice barely audible over the silence. Before Lily could respond, Sarah rushed over, her face pale with panic. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, pulling Lily back protectively. "She doesn't usually do this. I don't know what came over her." Ethan stared at Sarah, recognition dawning in his eyes. The pieces were starting to fit together, but he needed answers. Answers that would change everything for all of them. The silence in the diner was deafening. Every eye was fixed on Ethan, Sarah, and little Lily, who stood clutching her mother's hand tightly. The air felt thick with unanswered questions, unspoken emotions, and a tension so palpable it could be cut with a knife. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to process what had just happened. Her daughter calling a complete stranger dad was not something she had ever imagined would occur, let alone in front of an entire room full of people. Ethan, still seated at his table, looked bewildered. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of the situation. He glanced at Lily, whose wide blue eyes stared up at him with an innocence that melted even the hardest corners of his heart. Then he turned his gaze to Sarah. She looked terrified, her hands trembling slightly as she held on to Lily. For a moment their eyes met, and Ethan saw something flicker in hers, a mix of guilt, fear, and perhaps regret. Finally breaking the awkward silence, Ethan cleared his throat. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice calm but tinged with urgency. Sarah hesitated. Part of her wanted to run away, to grab Lily and leave before things spiraled further out of control. But another part of her knew there was no escaping this moment. Whatever secrets she had kept buried for years were now surfacing, and she couldn't ignore them any longer. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly, "but not here." She led him outside, leaving Lily inside with strict instructions to stay put and not move from the counter. Once they were standing under the awning of the diner, away from prying eyes, Ethan wasted no time getting to the point. "Is she mine?" he asked bluntly, his piercing gaze locking onto Sarah's. Sarah flinched at the directness of his question, but she didn't look away. Instead, she took a shaky breath and nodded. "Yes," she admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lily is your daughter." For a moment, Ethan said nothing. He simply stared at her, his mind reeling with a whirlwind of emotions, shock, disbelief, anger, and even a strange sense of relief. After all these years, the truth was finally out. But how? Why hadn't Sarah told him? And why now? "I didn't tell you because—" Sarah trailed off, struggling to find the right words. Tears welled up in her eyes as she continued. "Because I didn't want to burden you. You were chasing your dreams, building your future, and I didn't think you'd want to be tied down. I thought it was better this way for both of us." Her voice cracked as she spoke, revealing the pain she had carried for years. It wasn't easy raising a child alone, especially when money was tight and support was scarce. Yet despite the hardships, Sarah had done everything in her power to give Lily a good life. She worked long hours, sacrificed her own happiness, and endured countless sleepless nights, all while keeping the identity of Lily's father a secret. Ethan listened intently, absorbing every word. Guilt gnawed at him as he realized the weight Sarah must have carried all these years. He thought back to those carefree summer days when they had first met. The laughter, the stolen kisses, the promises made under starlit skies. At the time, he had been young, ambitious, and eager to prove himself. Leaving town had seemed like the only option if he wanted to succeed. But in doing so, he had left behind more than just memories. He had left behind a family. "I'm sorry," Ethan said finally, his voice heavy with remorse. "I should have stayed in touch. I should have made more of an effort to keep our connection alive. But I let my ambition blind me. And now, he paused, looking toward the diner where Lily sat happily coloring, oblivious to the storm brewing around her. Now I've missed 6 years of her life. Sarah wiped her tears with the back of her hand, touched by his sincerity. It's not too late, she murmured. She needs you, Ethan. Even if I didn't realize it until today, I can see now how much having a father means to her. Ethan nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. Then I'll do whatever it takes to make up for lost time, he vowed. Starting now. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a regular fixture at the diner. He arrived almost daily, sometimes ordering a meal, other times just sitting quietly at a corner table watching Lily play or helping Sarah clean up after closing time. At first, Sarah was hesitant about letting him into their lives. She worried about disrupting the delicate balance she had built over the years. What if Ethan decided he didn't want to stick around? What if Lily got attached to him only to have him disappear again? But as days turned into weeks, Sarah began to see a different side of Ethan. Despite his wealth and success, he was surprisingly humble. He treated her with kindness and respect, never once making her feel inferior or judged for her circumstances. More importantly, he genuinely cared about Lily. He brought her small gifts, coloring books, toys, and even a beautiful dress that made her twirl with delight. He listened patiently as she babbled excitedly about school, her friends, and her dreams of becoming an artist. Slowly but surely, a bond began to form between them. Lily, for her part, adored Ethan. To her, he wasn't just some rich businessman. He was the dad she had always dreamed of having. Someone who played hide-and-seek with her, read bedtime stories, and tucked her in at night. Someone who hugged her tightly and told her she was loved. For the first time in her young life, Lily felt whole. One evening, as they closed up the diner together, Sarah found herself opening up to Ethan in ways she never thought possible. They sat side by side on the curb outside, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the quiet street. "You've changed," Sarah said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "I mean, you're still the same guy I fell for all those years ago, but different somehow. Softer." Ethan chuckled softly, scratching the back of his neck. "Maybe being a father does that to you," he replied. "Or maybe it's just knowing what truly matters in life." They shared a smile, the kind that spoke volumes without needing words. In that moment, Sarah realized how much she had missed him, not just during the early days of Lily's life, but throughout the years they had spent apart. There was still so much to figure out, so many bridges to rebuild. But for the first time in a long time, Sarah allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this unexpected reunion could lead to something beautiful, something real. Ethan's presence in Sarah and Lily's lives grew stronger with each passing day. What started as tentative visits to the diner soon evolved into something more meaningful. He began taking them out on weekends, simple outings at first, like trips to the park or ice cream shops, but they quickly became cherished memories for both mother and daughter. For Lily, having a dad who showed up consistently was nothing short of magical. She giggled uncontrollably when he pushed her on the swings, squealed with delight when he let her pick out flavors at the ice cream parlor, and clung to his hand as they strolled through the farmer's market. Sarah, too, found herself relaxing around him. The initial anxiety she had felt about letting Ethan back into their lives slowly faded. She noticed how effortlessly he fit into their world, how naturally he interacted with Lily, and how genuinely interested he seemed in getting to know them better. It wasn't just about money or material things, it was about connection. Every time. Ethan looked at Lily. There was a softness in his eyes that made Sarah's heart swell. And every time he turned those same warm eyes toward her, she felt a flutter of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. But life wasn't without its challenges. Word spread quickly in their small town about the billionaire who had suddenly appeared in Sarah's life. Whispers followed them wherever they went. Some people were curious, others skeptical, and a few downright judgmental. "What does he see in her?" one waitress muttered under her breath during a shift at the diner. Another neighbor, openly, questioned whether Ethan's intentions were sincere, or if he was simply trying to ease his conscience. The comments stung, but Sarah refused to let them get to her. She knew Ethan's actions spoke louder than any gossip could. He didn't flaunt his wealth or try to change her lifestyle overnight. Instead, he took small steps to improve their situation in ways that mattered most. When Sarah mentioned how tired she was of working double shifts, Ethan offered to hire additional staff at the diner so she could spend more time with Lily. When Lily expressed interest in art classes, he enrolled her in a local program without hesitation. These gestures weren't grand or flashy. They were thoughtful and considerate, reflecting the kind of man Ethan truly was. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Sarah joined Ethan on the porch of their modest rental house. They sat side by side on creaky wooden chairs, sipping cups of tea as fireflies danced in the twilight. The air was cool and fragrant, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine. For a while, neither of them spoke, content to simply enjoy the peaceful moment together. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone hesitant yet determined. "About us, about where we go from here." Sarah tensed slightly, unsure of what to expect. "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously. "I mean..." Ethan paused, choosing his words carefully. "I want to be part of your lives, not just Lily's, but yours too. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes, if you'll let me." His confession hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Sarah felt her chest tighten with emotion. Part of her wanted to leap at the chance to rebuild what they once had, but another part, the practical, cautious side, reminded her of all the risks involved. Could she trust him completely? Would he stay this time, or would he leave again when life got complicated? "I don't know, Ethan," she admitted softly, staring down at her hands. "You being here has made such a difference for me and for Lily. But rebuilding something, starting over, it's not easy. We've both changed so much since then." "I understand," Ethan replied earnestly. "I'm not asking for anything overnight. All I'm saying is, I want to try. I want to show you that I'm serious about this, about us." Tears pricked the corners of Sarah's eyes as she absorbed his words. She glanced toward the window, where the faint glow of Lily's nightlight illuminated her sleeping face. Her daughter had already given Ethan her whole heart. Now it was Sarah's turn to decide if she was ready to do the same. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the blinds, Sarah woke up feeling lighter than she had in years. She couldn't explain why exactly. It wasn't as though everything had been resolved overnight. But somehow, knowing that Ethan was willing to fight for their family filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. As she prepared breakfast for Lily, she hummed a cheerful tune, surprising even herself with her good mood. Lily bounced into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, and immediately launched into an animated recounting of her dreams from the night before. "And guess what, Mommy? Daddy was there too. We were flying kites and they went super high." Sarah smiled, marveling at how easily Lily referred to Ethan as Daddy. It was a title he had earned not through blood alone, but through love and effort. Watching the bond between them grow stronger each day brought Sarah immense joy, and a little bit of envy. She longed for the same closeness with Ethan, but she knew it would take time. Later that afternoon, Ethan arrived bearing gifts. A picnic, basket packed with sandwiches, fruit, and lemonade, along with a blanket and a kite. "Thought we could use some fresh air today," he said brightly, winking at Lily. "What do you say, kiddo? Ready to fly?" "Yes," Lily exclaimed, clapping her hands excitedly. They drove to a nearby park, where rolling green hills stretched as far as the eye could see. Children laughed and played in the distance, dogs barked joyfully, and the wind carried the sweet scent of wildflowers. Together, the three of them spread out the blanket beneath a towering oak tree and enjoyed their meal, laughing and talking as though they had done this 100 times before. Afterward, Ethan helped Lily assemble the kite, patiently guiding her tiny hands as they tied knots and adjusted strings. Once it was ready, he handed it to her with a proud smile. "All right, champ, let's see if we can get this baby airborne." With Sarah holding one end of the string and Ethan assisting Lily with the other, they ran across the field, the kite trailing behind them like a colorful bird eager to take flight. After several attempts, it finally caught the wind, soaring gracefully above their heads. Lily shrieked with excitement, jumping up and down as she watched her creation dance against the blue sky. "You did it, sweetheart," Sarah cheered, wrapping an arm around her daughter. "We make a pretty great team, don't we?" Ethan added, grinning as he glanced at Sarah. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. There was no denying the chemistry between them. It had always been there, even during their younger days. But now it was tempered by maturity, understanding, and a shared responsibility toward the little girl who stood between them, her laughter ringing like music in the crisp spring air. As the sun began to set, painting the horizon in shades of gold and pink, Ethan pulled Sarah aside while Lily chased butterflies nearby. "I meant what I said last night," he told her, his voice low and earnest. "I want to be here, for you, for Lily, for all of us, whatever it takes." Sarah nodded, a shy smile playing on her lips. "We'll figure it out," she said simply. Together. And for the first time in a very long time, she believed it. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan's role in Sarah and Lily's lives became more defined. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was family. The bond between him and Lily grew stronger with each passing day, and Sarah found herself relying on him in ways she never imagined. Slowly but surely, the three of them began to function as a unit, a real family, even if it still felt fragile and new. Ethan made an effort to be present for every milestone, no matter how small. Whether it was attending Lily's school plays, cheering her on at her first soccer game, or simply helping her practice spelling words after dinner, he threw himself into fatherhood with the same determination he brought to his business ventures. And while Sarah initially worried that Lily might grow too attached, those fears melted away as she watched their interactions. Ethan wasn't trying to buy his daughter's affection with expensive gifts or flashy gestures. He was earning it, through patience, kindness, and genuine love. One Saturday morning, Ethan surprised them both by showing up at their doorstep with a U-Haul truck parked outside. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow as she stepped onto the porch, clutching her robe tightly around her. "I thought it was time we upgraded your living situation," Ethan replied with a sheepish grin. "You've been renting this place for years, and I figured, why not move somewhere bigger? Somewhere that feels more like home?" Sarah blinked in disbelief. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious," Ethan said, nodding toward the truck. "I already picked out a place, a cozy apartment downtown. It's close to Lily's school, has plenty of space for all of us, and even comes with a little balcony where you can drink your coffee in peace." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she processed what he was saying. She had dreamed of moving out of their cramped rental house for years, but financial constraints always held her back. Now here was Ethan offering her and Lily the kind of stability she had only ever hoped for. Still, she hesitated. Accepting such a generous gift felt overwhelming, almost too good to be true. "It's not charity, Sarah," Ethan assured her gently, sensing her hesitation. "Think of it as an investment in our future, in our family." His words struck a chord deep within her. Family. That's exactly what they were becoming. A team, united by love and shared experiences. With a shaky breath, Sarah nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's do it." The move went smoothly, thanks largely to Ethan's meticulous planning. Their new apartment was everything Sarah could have hoped for. Spacious, bright, and filled with natural light. There was a separate bedroom for Lily, a modern kitchen where Sarah could finally cook without feeling cramped, and a cozy living room perfect for movie nights. For the first time in years, Sarah felt a sense of belonging, a place she could truly call home. Lily, of course, was thrilled. She spent hours decorating her room with fairy lights and posters of her favorite cartoon characters, proudly showing off her handiwork to anyone who visited. "Look, Daddy," she exclaimed one evening, dragging Ethan into her room. "Isn't it awesome?" "It's amazing, sweetheart," Ethan replied, ruffling her hair affectionately. "Just like you." Watching the two of them together filled Sarah with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about having a roof over their heads or nicer furniture. It was about creating a life full of laughter, love, and security. And Ethan, despite his wealth and status, fit seamlessly into their world. He didn't try to change them or impose his lifestyle on them. Instead, he embraced their quirks and traditions, adding his own touches along the way. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony sipping tea, Sarah turned to Ethan with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she began, "you've done so much for us already, more than I ever expected, but there's something else I've been thinking about." "Oh yeah?" Ethan asked, leaning forward slightly. "What is it?" "My dream," Sarah said softly, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Before Lily was born, I used to bake all the time. Cakes, cookies, pies. People used to tell me I should open my own bakery. But then life got busy, and I put that dream aside. I guess I forgot about it until recently." Ethan listened intently, his eyes lighting up with interest. "That sounds incredible," he said. "Why don't you go for it? Start your bakery." Sarah laughed nervously, shaking her head. "It's not that simple. Renting a space, buying equipment, marketing, it would cost a fortune. Besides, I wouldn't even know where to begin." "Well," Ethan replied with a mischievous smile, "luckily for you, you happen to know someone who specializes in making big dreams come true." Over the next few weeks, Ethan worked tirelessly to help Sarah bring her vision to life. He scouted locations, negotiated leases, and hired contractors to renovate the space. Meanwhile, Sarah poured her heart into designing the menu, experimenting with recipes late into the night, and enlisting Lily's help to taste test everything. Together, they transformed an old storefront into a charming little bakery called Sweet Beginnings. On opening day, the line stretched down the block. Friends, neighbors, and curious passers-by flooded in to sample Sarah's creations, praising her talent and congratulating her on her achievement. Inside, Ethan stood proudly beside her, watching as she greeted customers with a radiant smile. Lily, wearing a miniature apron embroidered with her name, ran around handing out samples and collecting compliments. "You did it," Ethan murmured, wrapping an arm around Sarah's shoulders. "This is just the beginning." Sarah leaned into him, overwhelmed with gratitude. "We did it," she corrected softly. "Together." Despite their growing closeness, Sarah and Ethan knew they still had work to do. Rebuilding trust took time, especially when it came to matters of the heart. They spent countless evenings talking late into the night, sharing stories from their pasts and discussing their hopes for the future. Through these conversations, they discovered how much they had grown, not just individually, but as partners. The reckless young lovers they had once been were gone, replaced by two adults who understood the value of compromise, communication, and commitment. One chilly autumn evening, as they strolled through the park hand in hand, Ethan stopped suddenly and turned to face Sarah. His expression was unusually serious, and for a moment, she wondered if something was wrong. "There's something I need to say," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Something I should have said a long time ago." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "I love you, Sarah," Ethan confessed, his piercing blue eyes locked onto hers. "Not just because of Lily, not just because of everything we've been through together, but because you're an extraordinary woman. Strong, kind, resilient, everything I admire and respect. You've given me a second chance at happiness, and I don't want to waste it. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, with both of you." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she absorbed his words. She had waited so long to hear them, to feel truly seen and loved for who she was. And now, standing under the golden glow of streetlights with leaves crunching beneath their feet, she knew without a doubt that Ethan meant every word. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "More than you'll ever know." In that moment, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the season, They sealed their promise with a kiss that symbolized not just forgiveness and redemption, but a fresh start. A new chapter in their story, one written with hope, resilience, and an unshakable belief in the power of love. The days that followed Ethan's heartfelt confession were filled with a sense of renewed purpose for Sarah, Ethan, and Lily. Their lives had transformed in ways none of them could have predicted when this unexpected journey began. What started as a chance encounter at the diner had blossomed into something far greater, a family united by love, trust, and shared dreams. Ethan wasted no time making his intentions clear. He didn't just want to be part of their lives. He wanted to build a future together. A few weeks after their walk in the park, he surprised Sarah with another gesture that left her speechless. One evening, as they sat together on the couch after putting Lily to bed, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's eyes widened as she stared at him, her heart pounding in anticipation. What is this?" she asked hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan smiled softly, opening the box to reveal a simple yet elegant diamond ring. "It's not much," he admitted, his tone laced with nervous excitement. "But it represents everything. I feel for you, for us. Sarah, will you marry me?" For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she looked from the ring to Ethan's hopeful face. Every fear, every doubt, every hesitation melted away under the weight of his sincerity. This wasn't about grand gestures or material wealth. It was about love. Pure, unconditional love. "Yes," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. 1,000 times yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly as he did so. They embraced tightly, their hearts beating as one. In that moment, all the struggles they had faced, the secrets, the misunderstandings, the years apart, felt insignificant compared to the joy they shared now. News of their engagement spread quickly, and soon the entire town was abuzz with excitement. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had once whispered judgmental remarks now offered nothing but well wishes and congratulations. The bakery became busier than ever, with customers stopping by not only for Sarah's delicious treats but also to congratulate her on her upcoming wedding. Lily, of course, was over the moon. She proudly showed off her mom's ring to anyone who would listen, declaring, "My daddy gave it to her because he loves us." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and everyone around her couldn't help but smile at her innocence and joy. Planning. The wedding turned out to be a joyful experience for the entire family. Rather than opting for a lavish affair that would reflect Ethan's wealth, they decided to keep things simple and intimate. The ceremony would take place outdoors, beneath a canopy of twinkling lights, surrounded by close friends and family. It was exactly what Sarah had always envisioned, a celebration of love without unnecessary extravagance. As the big day approached, Sarah found herself reflecting on how far they had come. Just a year ago, she had been a single mother struggling to make ends meet, working long hours at the diner while raising Lily on her own. Now she was engaged to a man who cherished her, running her own successful bakery, and watching her daughter thrive under the care of a loving father. Life had changed in ways she never thought possible, and she was grateful for every moment of it. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers through the air. Sarah stood in front of the mirror in her childhood home, dressed in a flowing white gown that hugged her figure perfectly. Her dark hair cascaded down her back in loose waves, adorned with a delicate floral crown. She looked radiant, glowing, with happiness as tears of joy glistened in her eyes. Lily, dressed in a soft pink dress and clutching a basket of rose petals, bounced excitedly beside her. "You look so pretty, Mommy," she exclaimed, her blue eyes wide with admiration. "So do you, sweetheart," Sarah replied, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. "Are you ready to be my flower girl?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "I won't drop any petals this time, I promise." Meanwhile, at the venue, Ethan paced nervously back and forth, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. Despite his confident demeanor in business and life, today he felt like a bundle of nerves. His best friend and best man, Daniel, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Relax, man. Everything's going to be perfect." "I hope so," Ethan muttered, glancing toward the entrance where guests were beginning to gather. "I just can't believe this is really happening." "It's happening," Daniel confirmed with a grin, "and you deserve every bit of it." Finally, the moment arrived. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the scene, the string quartet began playing a soft melody. Guests turned in their seats, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the bride. First came Lily, scattering petals along the aisle with careful precision, her face lit up with pride. Then, accompanied by Sarah's father, Sarah appeared, looking like a vision straight out of a dream. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he watched her approach. His heart swelled with emotion, and he couldn't help but marvel at how lucky he was to have found her again. When she finally reached him, her father kissed her cheek before placing her hand in Ethan's. Their fingers intertwined and they exchanged a look that spoke volumes, a silent promise to cherish each other forever. The ceremony was brief, but heartfelt. The officiant's words resonated deeply with everyone present, but none more so than Sarah and Ethan. As they exchanged vows, their voices steady and full of conviction, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Lily stood between them, holding both their hands, her presence serving as a reminder of the bond that had brought them together. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant announced, his voice warm with emotion. "You may kiss the bride." Ethan lifted Sarah's veil gently before leaning in to kiss her, sealing their union with a tender embrace. Cheers erupted from the audience, and Lily jumped up and down, shouting, "Yay! You're married now!" The reception that followed was a lively affair, filled with laughter, dancing, and plenty of dessert from Sweet Beginnings. Sarah and Ethan shared their first dance as a married couple, swaying slowly to a romantic ballad under the starlit sky. Lily joined them halfway through, giggling as they twirled her around in circles. Later that night, as the festivities wound down and guests began to depart, Sarah found herself sitting alone on a bench overlooking the garden. Ethan joined her, moments later, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Are you happy?" he asked softly, his voice filled with warmth. Sarah leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied. "This isn't the life I imagined for myself, but it's better. It's perfect." Ethan kissed the top of her head, his heart swelling with gratitude. "We've come a long way," he murmured. "From that little diner to here, it feels like a miracle." "It is a miracle," Sarah agreed, "one I'll never take for granted." As they sat together basking in the quiet beauty of the night, they knew their journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, as there are in any marriage, but they faced them with unwavering faith in each other and in the love that had brought them together. For Sarah, Ethan, and Lily, the future was bright, a tapestry woven with hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Life after the wedding was a beautiful blend of old routines and new beginnings. Sarah, Ethan, and Lily settled into their roles as a family with surprising ease, each day bringing them closer together. The challenges they had faced in the past seemed like distant memories now, overshadowed by the joy and love that filled their home. Yet life is never without its twists and turns, and their story was no exception. Ethan, despite his wealth and success, remained grounded in his new role as a husband and father. He continued to support Sarah's bakery, helping her expand the business to include online orders and catering services. The demand for Sweet Beginnings grew rapidly, and soon Sarah found herself hiring additional staff to keep up with the influx of customers. It was hard work, but she loved every moment of it. For the first time in years, she felt truly fulfilled, not just as a mother or wife, but as an individual pursuing her dreams. Lily thrived under the care of both parents. With Ethan's guidance, she blossomed into a confident and curious child. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and discovered a passion for painting. Her artwork adorned the walls of their apartment, turning it into a vibrant gallery of colors and imagination. On weekends, the three of them would take trips to museums, parks, and even art classes, creating memories that would last a lifetime. But not everything was smooth sailing. As much as Ethan tried to balance his demanding career with family life, there were times when work threatened to pull him away. One evening, just a few months after the wedding, he came home late, looking weary and distracted. Sarah noticed immediately and approached him with concern. "Is everything okay?" she asked, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Ethan sighed, running, a hand through his hair. "There's been a complication at the company," he admitted reluctantly. "A major project is falling behind schedule and I need to step in personally to fix it. It might mean traveling for a while." Sarah's heart sank. She knew how important his work was to him, but the thought of him being away again, even temporarily, was unsettling. "How long are we talking about?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "A few weeks, maybe more," Ethan replied, avoiding her gaze. "I don't want to leave you and Lily, but if I don't handle this, now it could cause bigger problems later." Sarah nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his responsibilities. "We'll manage," she said finally, forcing a smile. "Just promise me you'll come back as soon as possible." "I promise," Ethan vowed, pulling her into a tight embrace. "No matter what happens, you and Lily will always be my priority." True to his word, Ethan made every effort to stay connected while he was away. He called daily, checking in on Sarah and Lily, and sent video messages so Lily could show off her latest paintings. Despite the distance, their bond remained strong. Sarah threw herself into her work at the bakery, using the busy schedule to distract herself from missing him. And Lily, ever resilient, occupied herself with school projects and playdates, though she often asked when her dad would return. When Ethan finally came home 2 months later, the reunion was nothing short of magical. Lily ran to him as soon as he walked through the door, throwing her arms around his neck. "Daddy, you're back," she exclaimed, her voice filled with pure delight. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Ethan murmured, hugging her tightly before turning to Sarah. "And I missed you," he added, pulling her into a kiss that spoke volumes about how much he had longed to be home. Over dinner that night, Ethan shared updates about his trip, explaining how he had managed to resolve the issues at work. "It's done now," he said with a relieved smile. "I won't have to travel like that again anytime soon. I learned my lesson. I can't let work get in the way of what truly matters." Sarah reached across the table to take his hand. "We're proud of you," she said sincerely. "You've worked so hard to build this life for us, and we appreciate everything you do." As the months passed, their family dynamic continued to evolve. They celebrated milestones big and small, from Lily's first lost tooth to Sarah's bakery being featured in a local magazine. Each achievement brought them closer, reinforcing the foundation of trust and love they had built together. One crisp winter morning, Sarah woke up feeling unusually tired. At first, she brushed it off as exhaustion from the holiday rush at the bakery. But when the fatigue persisted, along with bouts of nausea, she decided to visit a doctor. The diagnosis left her stunned. She was pregnant. Ethan's reaction was a mix of shock and elation. "Another baby?" he repeated, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, breaking into a grin, he pulled her into a hug. "This is amazing news." Lily, upon hearing the news, squealed with excitement. "I'm going to be a big sister," she declared, already imagining herself as a protector and helper for the new arrival. "Can we name it Daisy if it's a girl, or Max if it's a boy?" The prospect of expanding their family filled them all with anticipation. Over the next several months, they prepared for the new addition, decorating the nursery and attending parenting classes together. Ethan took paternity leave to ensure he could be present during the pregnancy and after the birth, determined not to miss a single moment. On a warm spring afternoon, their second child, A healthy baby boy named Max was born. Holding him in her arms for the first time, Sarah felt a surge of gratitude and wonder. Beside her, Ethan gazed down at their son with tears in his eyes, marveling at the miracle of life. Lily leaned over the hospital bed, her face glowing with pride. "Hi, Max," she whispered, gently touching his tiny hand. "Welcome to our family." Years passed, and the Carter household became a hub of laughter, creativity, and unconditional love. Sarah's bakery flourished, earning acclaim far beyond their small town. Ethan scaled back his involvement in the corporate world, focusing instead on ventures that allowed him to spend more time with his family. And Lily, now a teenager, pursued her artistic talents with fervor, dreaming of becoming a professional painter someday. Through it all, they remained united by the bonds they had forged, the struggles they had overcome, the sacrifices they had made, and the love that had carried them through. Their story was proof that sometimes life's greatest surprises come when you least expect them. From a chance meeting at a diner to building a life full of purpose and joy, Sarah, Ethan, and their children proved that true happiness lies not in material wealth or external validation, but in the connections we nurture and the love we share. As they gathered around the dinner table one evening, laughing and sharing stories, Sarah glanced at Ethan and smiled. "Do you remember that day at the diner?" she asked softly. Ethan chuckled, reaching for her hand. "How could I forget? That little girl changed everything." "She sure did," Sarah agreed, looking fondly at Lily, who sat animatedly sketching in her notebook. Then, glancing at baby Max, who giggled happily in his high chair, she added, "And she wasn't the only one." In that moment, surrounded by the people who meant the most to her, Sarah realized something profound. Their journey hadn't been perfect, but it had been worth every step. Together, they had created a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. A testament to the power of forgiveness, resilience, and the unbreakable ties of family.